While taking a stroll with his mom on the streets of Sutton, a small town in London, a young man posed by the side of a phone booth with his mother for a photo, hoping to capture a lovely family moment. But when he later took a closer look at the picture, he noticed something shocking and immediately began to panic. This one image would change his life afterwards. Before we dive deeper into this shocking story, let us know where you're watching from today, and if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. Sit back and enjoy this story as it unfolds. This young man's name is Jadon Adams. He had grown used to living with the quiet ache of loss. At just 33, he had already buried his wife, and in the years that followed, the only thing that kept his world from collapsing was his little boy, Charlie. Charlie was his laughter, his purpose, his anchor in the darkness. They lived simply, just father and son, but to Jadon it was enough. Then came the day Charlie left with the family friends Jadon trusted like blood. A simple outing, a harmless trip. Jadon waved goodbye at the door, unaware it would be the last time he'd see that small hand waving back. The call came an hour later, broken, frantic voices on the other end, words tumbling over each other. Accident, trailer, cliff, into the sea, no survivors. Jadon's knees buckled. The phone slipped from his hand. The world tilted and never quite returned to place. Charlie, the only light left in his life, was gone, and with him went every reason Jadon had for waking up in the morning. Days blurred. Nights stretched endlessly. 6 months passed, each one carving deeper hollows into his heart. He lived, but only in the way a body continues to breathe after its soul has already left. But fate was not finished with him. Because 6 months later, with grief sitting heavy on his chest and life moving on without him, Jadon would look at a simple photo, one taken on an ordinary street, and feel his heart slam against his ribs. One photo, one impossible detail, one truth that would unravel everything he thought he knew. The months after Charlie's death hollowed Jadon into a shadow of the man he once was. His small house, once filled with the sound of a child's laughter, had grown unbearably silent. He barely ate, barely slept, moving through each day like someone drifting underwater, unable to rise for air. Charlie's room remained exactly as it had been the morning he left. Toy cars lined neatly against the wall, superhero posters on the door, a tiny pair of sneakers beside the bed. Jadon couldn't bring himself to move a single thing. Opening the door felt like reopening a wound that refused to heal, yet he stepped inside every night, sitting quietly on the edge of the small bed, imagining his son's warm presence beside him. Some days he would wander to the playground, Charlie's favorite place. He would stand by the swing set, watching the empty seat sway in the wind, remembering how Charlie used to pump his legs, shouting, "Higher, Daddy." The emptiness of the place tore at him, but he returned again and again, as if seeking pieces of his son in the silence. One afternoon, as Jadon sat staring blankly at the kitchen table, he heard a knock on the door. His mother, Mrs. Adams, stood there, her eyes widening at the sight of him, unshaven, pale, drowning in grief. She stepped inside without waiting for invitation and wrapped her arms around him. "Jadon," she whispered, voice trembling, "you can't keep living like this." Jadon said nothing. She cupped Jadon's face gently. "You're still young. You deserve another chance at life and maybe another child someday. Charlie wouldn't want you to fade away like this." For a moment, something inside him flickered, painful but alive. He managed a weak smile, the first one in months. His mother squeezed his hand. "Come," she said softly. "Let's take a walk, just a few minutes outside." Jadon hesitated. After the accident, he had avoided the world completely. But today, with his mother by his side, he took a slow breath and nodded. It was the first step he had taken toward life, since the day his world ended. Stepping outside felt strange for Jadon, almost like venturing into a world that had moved on without him. The sun was warm, the street alive with distant chatter, and his mother walked beside him with quiet hope in her eyes. They didn't talk much at first, words felt heavy, but slowly the silence softened. At one point, Mrs. Adams pointed at a bakery window where a child smeared icing across the glass. Jadden exhaled a faint laugh, the sound brittle but real. His mother's face brightened. She squeezed his arm gently, as though reassuring herself that her son was slowly returning. As they continued walking, they reached an old phone booth, one of the few still standing on the street. A passerby, an elderly man, paused and offered with a kind smile, "Want me to take a picture for you too?" Jadden almost declined, but his mother nudged him. For once, he didn't resist. They stood side by side and the old man snapped the photo. In that captured moment, Jadden's smile didn't feel forced. It felt like a small doorway opening inside him. The next morning, his mother packed her bag and hugged him tightly at the door. "Call me if you need anything," she said. "And remember, you still have a life to live, son." After she left, the house settled back into its familiar quiet. Jadden wandered into the living room, sat on the couch, and opened his phone. He wanted to see the photo again, a rare moment where the world hadn't felt so heavy. But when the image appeared on his screen, the breath was knocked from his chest. There in the background, right beside the phone booth, was a poster he hadn't noticed the day before. Bold letters at the top read, "Missing boy found Charlie Adams." Jadden's heart slammed against his ribs. The picture on the poster wasn't old. It wasn't from months ago. It was recent. Charlie looked older, healthier, alive. His hands began to shake. The phone slipped from his grip and hit the floor. This had to be some cruel prank. Or a mistake. Or... Jadden gripped the sides of the couch, trying to breathe. Or was Charlie truly alive? Jadden didn't bother grabbing a jacket. He sprinted straight from his house to the police station. The phone clutched so tightly in his hand that his knuckles turned white. Bursting through the doors, he slammed the picture onto the counter, his voice breaking as he begged the officers to look. Two detectives studied the image carefully. One zoomed in on the poster's edges, noticing how crisp the paper looked. "This isn't old," he murmured. "Whoever printed this did it recently, maybe even this week." That alone sent a shiver down Jadden's spine. Within minutes, a patrol team agreed to accompany him back to the street where he had taken the picture. Jadden walked quickly, almost running. Terrified the poster would be gone, as if proving it existed meant proving hope still existed too. But when they reached the phone booth, the poster was still there, fluttering slightly in the breeze. The officers exchanged looks before dialing the number printed at the bottom. The phone rang once, twice, a third time. Then a calm, steady male voice answered. "Yes, I know the boy." Jadden's knees almost gave out. One officer grabbed his arm to steady him. The man continued, speaking slowly, carefully, as though choosing each word. "The child is safe, but he's not with me. He's with my father. The old man lives deep in the village. A hunter. He found the boy." Jadden opened his mouth to speak anything, but before he could, the line crackled sharply and went dead. The officers stared at the phone. "Was that accidental," one whispered, "or deliberate?" They called the number again. This time it rang longer. Jadden felt his breath caught in his throat. Finally, the same voice answered. "I'm here. The network is bad," he explained. His tone remained calm, almost apologetic. "If you want to find the child, I'll take you. Come to my house. From there, we'll go to my father's village together." Jadden pressed a hand to his chest, trying to steady the whirlwind inside him. For the first time in 6 months, hope didn't feel like a cruel illusion. It felt real enough to chase. The police wasted no time assembling a small escort team, sensing the urgency trembling beneath Jadden's calm exterior. The man who had answered the call, tall, soft-spoken, and visibly concerned, waited outside the station, ready to lead the way. Jadden studied him closely, clinging to every hint of truth in his eyes. They drove for hours, leaving the familiar hum of the city far behind. The roads thinned into narrow dirt paths, winding through forests and quiet stretches of land where even network signals seemed afraid to go. With every passing mile, Jadden's heartbeat quickened. Fear, hope, dread, and longing tangled together until he could barely tell one from the other. As dusk approached, the man pointed ahead. "My father's place is not far." A small village appeared, simple mud houses, smoke rising gently from cooking fires, children running barefoot along the paths. The villagers paused to watch the convoy of police vehicles pass, whispering among themselves. Finally, they stopped before a modest hut at the edge of the forest. A frail-looking old man stepped out, startled by the commotion. But when his eyes found his son among the officers, his shoulders relaxed, and he offered a shy, relieved smile. He approached slowly, bowing his head respectfully. "You've come a long way," he said, his voice warm and weary. Without hesitation, he invited them inside, offering wooden benches and a pitcher of cool water. His hospitality was genuine, simple, untouched by fear or deceit. Jadden's heart pounded as he sat down, because the truth he had come seeking was now only a heartbeat away. The old hunter settled onto a low wooden stool, his weathered hands resting on his knees as the officers gathered around. His eyes were tired but kind, holding no hint of fear or deception. When Jadden finally found the courage to ask about the boy, the old man nodded slowly. "The boy," he said softly. "Yes, he's been here sleeping." Jadden's breath hitched, but he forced himself to stay still. The hunter leaned back, recalling the night everything changed. "6 months ago," he began, "I was deep in the forest. It was late, too late for anyone to be out there. I heard crying, small, frightened crying. At first I thought it was an animal, but then I heard him calling for his father." He paused, shaking his head at the memory. "I found him wandering between the trees, shivering so hard I thought he'd faint. His clothes were wet, his feet muddy. Every few seconds he whispered 'Daddy' like he expected someone to answer." Jadden clenched his fist, fighting tears. "I tried to ask him where he came from, but he was too shocked. I had no phone, no way to reach help. I live far from the main road, and no one passes through the forest unless they're lost." The hunter sighed. "So I brought him home, fed him warm soup, wrapped him in blankets. He fell asleep holding my hand." The room fell silent, the weight of the moment pressing into everyone's chest. "I kept him safe," the old man continued. "Every day, hopping someone would come looking for him, but days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and still no one." The old hunter glanced at his son, that came with the police. "Last week my son visited me from the city. Saw the boy sitting outside carving wood like I taught him. I told him everything, how I found the boy, how I didn't know who he belonged to. My son, he took a picture immediately. Said he would return to the city and create posters." Jadden swallowed hard, overwhelmed with gratitude and disbelief. The officers exchanged looks, pieces of a long-lost puzzle finally fitting together. Jadden managed a trembling "thank you." The officers echoed it, thanking both men for doing what no one else could. But then one detective leaned forward, voice steady but urgent. "Where is the boy at this moment?" he asked. Jadden's heart stopped. The answer was moments away. The old hunter stood slowly, his joints cracking softly as he motioned for them to follow him deeper into the hut. Jadden's legs felt weak, and every step sent a tremor through his chest. The officers stayed close behind, their expressions softened with quiet anticipation. The hut was small, just 2 rooms separated by a curtain made from old cloth. The hunter gently pulled it aside. Inside, on a simple woven mat, lay a small boy curled under a thin blanket. His breathing was steady, peaceful. His cheeks were fuller than before, his hair a little longer, his body slightly taller, proof of 6 months lived away from the world that mourned him. But it was him. It was Charlie. Jadden's hands flew to his mouth as a sob tore through him. His knees buckled, and he fell beside the mat, trembling. "Charlie," his voice cracked, rich with disbelief and overwhelming relief. "My Charlie, it's really you." Hearing the familiar voice, Charlie stirred. His eyelids fluttered open, slow, heavy, until his gaze found the man kneeling beside him. For a moment, he simply stared, blinking as if trying to decide whether he was awake or dreaming. Then his small voice broke the silence. "Daddy." That single word shattered the room. Jadden collapsed forward, pulling his son into a desperate embrace. Charlie wrapped his arms around his father's neck, burying his face in the familiar warmth he thought he had lost forever. Jadden wept openly, his tears soaking Charlie's hair as he whispered again and again, "I've got you. I've got you, son, I'm here." The officers turned away slightly, swallowing their own emotion. Even the old hunter wiped his eyes discreetly. Moved by the reunion he never imagined he would witness. The hut, humble and quiet, became a sacred place, where despair turned into hope and a broken life began to stitch itself together again. Father and son, separated by tragedy, were finally whole. As the reunion settled and Charlie clung to his father's side, one of the officers gently approached, kneeling to the boy's level. His voice was soft, careful. "Charlie, can you tell us what happened that day? Anything you remember?" Charlie hesitated, glancing at Jadden for reassurance. Jadden nodded, wiping away Charlie's tears with trembling fingers. "It's okay, buddy. Just tell us what you know, tell us everything. Tell us how you weren't a part of the accident." Charlie sniffed and began speaking, his small voice trembling at first. "I wanted to pee that day during the journey. So Uncle Ben, he stopped the car," Charlie said, looking down at his hands. "He told me to go behind the bushes to pee. I crossed the road like he told me." The officers listened, leaning in slightly. Then I heard a loud noise," Charlie whispered. "A big truck, it came so fast." His eyes glazed with the memory. "I turned around and the trailer hit the car. It pushed it off the cliff." Jadden's breath caught. The officers exchanged sharp looks. "I saw everything," Charlie continued, voice cracking. "I screamed for them, but the car fell into the water. I didn't know what to do." He swallowed hard. "So I ran. I ran into the forest because I was scared. I thought the truck would hit me too." Jadden pulled him closer, kissing the top of his head. "I kept running, but the trees were too many," Charlie said. "I got lost. It got dark. I kept calling for Daddy." His voice shrank. Nobody came. The old hunter's face tightened with sympathy. "Then at night," Charlie went on, "I heard footsteps. I got scared, but it was Grandpa Hunter." He pointed at the old man. "He carried me. He gave me food. He stayed with me." Silence filled the hut, heavy, astonished. One officer exhaled slowly. The accident report never mentioned the boy wasn't in the car. They assumed all occupants were inside at the time of the crash. Another shook his head, which means this was a tragic misunderstanding, a terrible oversight. Jadden closed his eyes, grief, relief, and joy twisting inside him. Charlie leaned into him, whispering, "I thought you'd never find me." Jadden held him tighter than ever. "I would have searched the whole world," he whispered, "and I finally found you." Outside the small village, Jadden stood before the gathered community, his voice trembling as he thanked the hunter and his son. "You saved my boy's life," he said, his eyes glistening. "There's no way I can repay you, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying." The hunter bowed his head shyly, unused to such praise. His son shifted awkwardly, overwhelmed by the attention. But Jadden didn't stop there. He presented the hunter with a substantial financial reward, more money than the old man had ever imagined, and insisted he accept it. The hunter's hands shook as he held the envelope, tears slipping down his weathered cheeks. Jadden then turned to the hunter's son, telling him he would arrange a job for him in the city better than the one he's currently doing, steady work with good pay, safe housing, and a fresh start. The young man looked stunned, glancing at his father as if to ask permission to dream. Within weeks, Jadden helped relocate the old hunter to the city as well. For the first time in decades, father and son lived comfortably, far from the hardships of the forest. Across the village and beyond, people spoke of them with reverence. Two humble men who, by compassion alone, had kept a lost child alive. And everywhere Jadden went, he heard the same words whispered with admiration. They saved Charlie, they saved a family. By evening, the police had corrected the old case file, adding the missing detail that changed everything. Charlie had never been in the car when it plunged into the sea. The updated report cleared the confusion that had haunted Jadden for months. Months later, laughter once again lived inside Jadden's home. The silence that had haunted the walls was replaced with footsteps, bedtime stories, and the sound of Charlie's joy. One quiet afternoon, Jadden's mother arrived for a visit, her eyes filling with tears the moment Charlie ran into her arms. "My grandson," she whispered, holding him tightly as though afraid he might disappear again. She turned to Jadden, her voice trembling with gratitude. God returned what grief tried to steal. Life continued to heal in small, beautiful ways. Time brought new beginnings, and through patience and unexpected grace, Jadden met a woman whose kindness felt steady and true. She didn't try to replace the past, she respected it. She listened to Charlie's stories, tucked him into bed, and loved him not as an obligation but as her own. Slowly, Jadden learned how to hope again. Their wedding was simple, warm, and filled with meaning. Friends, family, and neighbors gathered, not to mourn the past but to celebrate survival and love. Among the guests stood the old hunter and his son, dressed neatly, pride shining in their eyes. When it was time to speak, the hunter's son stepped forward. "Jadden is a man who never stopped loving," he said. "Even when the world told him hope was gone, his heart stayed open. That love is what brought Charlie home." The hunter nodded beside him. A father like that deserves every joy life can offer. Applause followed, but Jadden could only wipe away tears. Even after the celebration ended, the bond remained. The hunter and his son visited often, sharing meals, laughter, and stories. Each visit was a quiet reminder that kindness can change destinies, and that family is sometimes found in the most unexpected places. Jadden would often watch Charlie laugh between them, and think the same thing every time. Some losses break you. Others lead you home.